Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
All the people around me in this city, however terrifying it is, stay here because they believe that good can prevail and that it's worth fighting for.
Joe. Little fucking Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine Bank.
And there's news of a prisoner swap between Ukraine and Russia. Let's get more on that and all of the news from Ukraine with Joseph Lindsley. Joe, what is going on today where you are?
Well, Bob, good afternoon from Kharkiv. Still here, 30 miles from Russia. And as I sit here, we had drone attacks at about 11 o'clock last night. Several of the Iranian suicide drones flew into parts of the city, and it seemed that air defense worked. But as I sit here, it's a calm, quiet day at the moment. We've had a few alarms in various places throughout Ukraine. And, I really feel it deeply here at the edge that Russia is this insane school shooter of nations. You never know when they're going to erupt and unleash an attack. So focused on their own victimhood and trying to destroy good things that people have built, such as the life I see around me in this city. And so that really is a feeling here, and even the sense of like being in some old Western movie when in the quiet scene before the action, the tumbleweed is blowing down the street and you're waiting for the shootout. And that is the feeling here in between Russia's attacks upon this city. And indeed, we had the news of the prisoner exchange, which is interesting because one thing that is being sort of ignored in all that is, we had the reports last week that Ukrainians seem to have shot down their third major Russian plane in about 10 days. And the Russians immediately said that there were Ukrainian prisoners of war on that plane. Much of the media ran with that headline, assuming that as a fact. The Russians said there were about 67 Ukrainian POWs on the plane. There's still no evidence of that whatsoever. And instead, what we have is today an actual prisoner exchange, something about 200 or so prisoners from either side. Each side reported different numbers. But it's interesting that there is zero evidence and that there were Ukrainians on the plane, the Russian plane that Ukraine shot down. And I suspect that we won't hear much more about it. It was simply, this is just a theory I have, but based on, looking at Russian propaganda, they wanted to obscure the news of Ukraine's success in shooting down a third such, very instrumental plane for Russia within such a short space of time. And they kind of succeeded in doing that. They made those headlines for a couple of days, did Ukraine shoot down its own people? And so they put more of a negative light on Ukraine. And then the story moves on. And now we have an actual transfer of prisoners. And no one's really talking about the plane anymore. And so I think we can see the very adroit efforts of Russian propaganda here. We also have, a big story that, so many people are talking about here as well as abroad is what's going on with President Zelensky and General Zaluzhny, the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's forces. The president is not commander-in-chief. That's a separate position. And, there's a lot of speculation. Financial Times and others have been reporting almost definitively that sources close to Zelensky say that there's an intention to dismiss the commander-in-chief, Zaluzhny. And we don't have any evidence. It's hard. It's all speculation right now. I think when I talk with people in Ukraine, they're a little bit disheartened by that possibility because there is such a deep affection for Zaluzhny, for the armed forces in general, but especially for General Zaluzhny. And, in the polling, he is routinely the most beloved figure here in Ukraine. People also want to win, and they know that you have to make personnel changes sometime. But there's not much we can say about that. We can't talk about what's actually happening, which is something that a lot of the media doesn't do. And in the past 24 hours or so, we've seen a lot of Ukrainian activity on either Russian soil or Ukrainian soil that Russians occupy. There was a big explosion yesterday in Sevastopol, in occupied Crimea. And we're also seeing this is becoming a pattern. But once again, Russian oil depots in Russia, so as far away as close to St. Petersburg, Ukrainians, it seems that they have been able to have another successful strike. And you have reports emerging from local media, for example, in St. Petersburg, fire trucks racing to the scene, the smell of burning rubber or burning oil in the air, and so this seems to be another successful Ukrainian drone strike deep into Russian territory. And we also had news that a Russian corvette, one of the Russian ships in the Black Sea Fleet, seems to have been hit by a small fleet of Ukrainian drones yesterday. So Ukrainians are, in sort of these unconventional front lines, the oil depots within Russia, and oil is Russia's lifeblood, and how it still makes money throughout the world, are being hit. And also, places in Crimea and in the Black Sea. And as we think about this, it's important to remember, like that for 2 days ago, there was a major internet outage throughout Russia, a huge outage. There's been power outages in Moscow the past several weeks in portions of the city. And you have these attacks on oil infrastructure in Russia. And this is something to remember. 1 year ago, sort of the same thing was happening here in Ukraine. And it's hard even to remember that now, but it was really like living in the Middle Ages in all of Ukraine just 1 year ago. Most people were without heat, hot water for many hours of every day. Every elevator in Kyiv or Kharkiv or major cities had a like an emergency kit because it was very common to get stuck in the elevator for several hours, and so they would put food and books in there to keep people calm and supplied. That was a reality almost every single day, all of last winter. And, that was Russia's failed winter offensive, which no one talks about now, but it was a winter offensive to freeze out Ukraine, and it totally failed. It failed so much so that they're not even trying to do that this year. The attacks we've seen since New Year's by Russia on Ukrainian cities, including here in Kharkiv, are not aimed at infrastructure. They're aimed at pure sort of terroristic destruction, hitting hotels and restaurants and cafes and neighborhoods and parks. But we did not see the infrastructure attacks that we saw last year. And in fact, it is Russia that is suffering more, nothing like the scale that Ukraine experienced last winter, but it is Russia that is facing attacks on its infrastructure from Ukraine right now. And amid all the political news about other matters, that story has been, I think, completely missed.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Sometimes what's not happening is news. There's a letter that we got here a while back, and I want to share this with everyone. It's from Masha is her name in Glenview. At 7:15 most mornings, I tune into your conversation with Joseph Lindsley. I am touched by your compassion and heartfelt understanding of the war. The little bit of time that Joseph is given is truly gold. I'm first-generation Russian-American with parents from Russia. My husband is from Crimea. We have relatives in Russia and Ukraine. They are 100% against the war, against Putin, of course. Our relatives in Ukraine are devastated. My 72-year-old cousin has been hiding in bomb shelters on and off for the past 2 years, and just today unwillingly sent her son off to fight against Putin's massacre, a destruction of so many young lives. Many people are not having an easy time being on either side of these atrocities. It is all so damn difficult, so wrong. My husband and I attended a concert where Ukrainians had set up tables outside the hall to sell items as a fundraiser for Ukrainian soldiers. I bought this T-shirt to support the cause. My husband already has several supportive T-shirts. And for my brother, it is too big, so I quickly made the decision to gift it to you. I hope you will be brave like Ukraine and don it. Slava Ukraine. And thanks for the T-shirt, Masha. Appreciate it. I should send it to Joseph. And I wanted you to hear what was in that note, Joe.
Well, Masha, thank you, and great to hear those words from a Russian American who sees what is at stake here. And this is, I think this is a tough question. And it's, if you read history and look at the 1930s and what was happening in Germany, And I think it should be a lesson, for all of us in our, in the U.S. and in other countries. If we neglect politics and we don't participate in our society, you end up with situations like the government and regime in Russia. And then you end up in a point where to do good requires you to risk your life. And so, it's better if we can avoid getting to that point. But that's the reality that, Russians, they have created for themselves. And this is what Ukrainians refused to be part of in 2014. And, as I sit here in Kharkiv and I think about, talk with people around the world and especially in the U.S., if you ever watch a superhero movie and you feel some good emotions watching it, or if you think about history and what might have been, or if you're looking for more meaning and purpose, more than ever, people around the world have a chance to not only to know what's happening far away, but also to see how those faraway events do affect them, and most importantly, to participate and to join and to find some way to stand on the side of good, as I see by all the people around me in this city, who however terrifying it is, stay here because they believe that good can prevail and that it's worth fighting for. And so it's great to hear those words from Masha, and it's good to know when we read about all the political news that the hardworking people around the world see very clearly what is right.
Let's end on that positive note. That is good to hear. Thank you, Joseph. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Until tomorrow. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?